Today is Monday, the 6th of April. This is Here First from Iowa Public Radio. I'm Samantha McIntosh. A local publisher will take over several rural newspapers that were in danger of shutting down last week. Mid-America Publishing in Hampton says financial and economic pressures led to the decision to shut down several of its publications. State Line Publications in Armstrong has agreed to buy 6 of them, including the Wright County Monitor and the Ida County Courier. Kristen Grabanowski of State Line says a newspaper helps to keep a community connected, especially to important information like public notices.
I am aware of the news desert that it would create by the closing of the newspapers.
Grabanowski says community support will be crucial, and the biggest challenge will be making sure the advertising is there to support the papers. Mid-America says the sale is expected to close this week. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and a nonprofit that prevents and responds to child abuse says the state has a long way to go. IPR's Megan McKinney reports.
Child abuse reports have been declining since 2022. Danica Haas, who leads Iowa chapter of Children's Advocacy Centers, says this is likely a reflection of underreporting, not less child abuse.
We oftentimes will have some communities that will say, oh, I know that child abuse isn't happening here, so we don't need to worry about it. And I can tell you that child abuse is happening in all 99 counties in Iowa.
A bill that would have required sexual abuse awareness education for K through 6th grade has failed to advance in the Iowa legislature. Haas says Iowa should require preventative education that teaches children how to identify safety concerns like physical abuse, neglect, or bullying. State data shows neglect and presence of illegal drugs made up over half of founded instances of child abuse in 2025. I'm Megan McKinney, IPR News.
Small modular nuclear reactors are scheduled to be built in Texas and Wyoming in the next decade, and Representative Hans Wilz of Ottumwa says Iowa lawmakers should come up with some state guidelines for this new class of reactors that are smaller, less costly to build, and have fewer risks.
Because we're not the only ones trying to do this. So we need to look at all the components of what's going to make applications work the best, what's going to be this easiest entry for us to get into.
Wilz says it may be wise to build small nuclear reactors beside already existing power plants. He hopes wherever a reactor gets built spawns related businesses. Wilz is a member of the Nuclear Energy Task Force established by Governor Kim Reynolds. The task force is scheduled to have its 3rd meeting today in Des Moines. The governor has asked the group to produce a final report by early July. American prairies are a threatened ecosystem, but they're not completely lost. There are efforts underway to preserve and restore prairies across the country. Harvest Public Media's Jess Savage has more.
Northern Illinois University is restoring a 40-acre field on its campus to a prairie. Courtney Gallagher is overseeing the project. She says the restoration creates important habitat for pollinators and green space for the community.
No one person or organization can restore all the prairies in Illinois or change the world in some other capacity. But if you help people to understand why it's valuable and sort of how to start the process, then it has the opportunity to continue.
The project is one of many efforts to create urban preserves in northern Illinois. Gallagher is seeing more prairie restoration around the Midwest, including on very small scales. For example, the state of Minnesota will reimburse residents for creating pollinator habitat in their yard. I'm Jess Savage, Harvest Public Media.
This is Here First from IPR News. I'm Samantha McIntosh. It's Monday morning, and that means it's time for another update on the Iowa legislative session. IPR's Michael Leland spoke with state government reporter Katerina Sostarek about what's gotten done at the State House over the past week and what remains to be finished.
Katerina, we're about 2 weeks from the legislature's target end date of April 21st. That's when payments for lawmakers' travel expenses run out. We know the state budget is the thing that has to get done for them to finish up the session. So where does that stand?
The Senate has started advancing some budget bills through a committee, but those will all end up being changed after the House and Senate Republican leaders agree on final budget numbers, and that hasn't happened yet. As of now, Senate Republicans have released their overall budget number that they're proposing. It's a little over $9.6 billion, and that's a 1.2% spending increase compared to the current year, and it's a bit less than the governor's proposed budget. In the House, Speaker Pat Grassley says they're hoping to release some of their budget proposals this week. But no matter where they land, it's looking like they'll be facing over a $1 billion budget deficit in the next fiscal year, and they'll be tapping into the state's savings to cover that gap.
And one budget item that's being discussed is funding for pediatric cancer research. What would that look like?
This bill would provide $3 million per year to the state's public universities for research and clinical trials focused on childhood cancers. And there were parents of kids with cancer who were at this subcommittee hearing last week sharing their stories. They said there needs to be more work on finding more effective and less toxic cancer treatments that are specifically for kids. Some said their kids got secondary cancers from their treatment. They said Iowa should follow Nebraska's lead, which has state funding for pediatric cancer research. House Speaker Grassley says there's a lot of support for this bill, but it's also going to be part of the negotiations with the Senate and the governor, so they can't commit to anything yet.
And last week, a right to repair farm equipment bill advanced, and that's a discussion that's been going on for a while. Who's lining up for and against this, and what are they saying?
So this would require farm equipment manufacturers to provide software, documentation, tools, and parts, everything needed to make repairs to farmers that own the equipment and to independent repair shops. And under the current bill, some of that would be provided to farmers for free and some at a fair cost, though that part of the bill is probably going to change. At a subcommittee, there was the Iowa Farmers Union and groups representing corn, soybean, pork, and beef producers who support the bill. They said this will help them make repairs more efficiently, saving them time and money when they don't have to go through a dealer for repairs. But the ag equipment dealers and manufacturers are strongly opposed to this. They say they already provide what farmers need to make repairs and that this would just disrupt their businesses.
Now, we saw 2 transportation-related bills pass the House last week. What would those do?
One of them would raise the default speed limit on most 2-lane highways from 55 miles per hour to 60. Speaker Pat Grassley says some Iowans, especially those in rural areas, have been asking lawmakers to make this change for years. But some are concerned that it would make the roads more dangerous and lead to more car accident deaths. The second transportation bill that passed would require commercial drivers to pass an English language proficiency test to get or renew their license. And that includes potential prison time for drivers who violate it, as well as fines and orders to stop operating for trucking companies that hire drivers who aren't proficient in English. Now, supporters of the bill say it'll help make Iowa's roads safer because current federal regulations aren't really being enforced. And opponents said there should be higher penalties for trucking company leaders who, under this bill, wouldn't face any prison time. And both of these passed the House, and they're now back in the Senate for consideration.
And finally, the legislature passed a bill last week that offers child care assistance to child care workers regardless of their income. Why do lawmakers say that's needed?
This policy has been in place as a pilot program, but the bill makes it permanent. And lawmakers and childcare advocates say this is so important for recruiting and retaining childcare workers, who often have their own kids who need childcare, and that this helps improve childcare access for all Iowans.
All right. Katerina, thanks a lot for this update.
Thanks, Michael.
IPR state government reporter Katerina Sostarek and Isabella Liu continue following the legislature for IPR News this session. You can also stay up to date by reading our Political Sense newsletter. It comes out every Friday, and you can subscribe at iowapublicradio.org. This is Here First from IPR News. I'm Samantha McIntosh.